We're going to start with some brief introductions. So they've got two microphones. They're going to do this fun little sharing of the microphones. So we're going to go down the line, or whoever has the mics can start first. Your name and what thing you're doing with your life right now that you're kind of excited about. If it's college, if it's career, if it's a fun hobby, if it's lots of naps. Let's hear about it.
This isn't working, is it? No? What?
Button. Button.
It's on. Hello. Usually I'm on the other side of these things. Can you guys hear me? Like this? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I'm Sam. I live here in Milwaukee, and I am almost a year into my carpentry apprenticeship, and it's great. I'm learning lots of cool stuff. That's what I'm doing. I just finished building my boss's house, so that was kind of fun.
Very cool. Hi, Sam. Woo!
All right, my name is Alicia. I am a surgical nurse at Columbia St. Mary's in Milwaukee, so I live in Milwaukee, and I'm a nurse.
Woo, Alicia.
I am Becky, for those who don't know, and I'm excited about a lot. I'm a very excitable person. I'm excited to be pursuing music education in college right now. I'm excited to be engaged to my wonderful fiance.
Woo.
I am excited to be here today with all of you.
Yes. Hey, Becky. We're going to take that one off the rotation.
My name is John. I am from Menominee Falls, Wisconsin, and I currently work at a doggy daycare, and I love being around dogs every single day.
Yeah, John.
My name is Brandon. I'm from the Appleton area, and right now I'm at Thrivent Financial, and I'm having a good time there.
Woo!
My name is Jenna. I also hail from Appleton. I go to Concordia in Mequon, and I'm an occupational therapy student.
Woohoo! So we are one microphone down, so this is going to get even more interesting. So, next. Okay, so the first question is, we're talking about fear today. And fear is something we fight as Christians with the help of God. I want to hear some real stories. You don't have to give details, but what I want to hear is how you guys have successfully found ways to combat fear in your faith life, in your walk, in your relationships. What does that look like? How are you successful over it? Some tips, some ideas. That's one way.
Yeah, I'm on the other side of these things, so this is new sometimes. But a couple things that I've learned about fear this year, specifically, I've been spending a lot of time on this, is I would say I do one of two things. First, I'm a big picture thinker. I think a lot about things coming up. I think of how what I do will affect me later on, or how it will affect others. And when I'm just like sitting alone by myself, my mind will like drift into these big ideas, and I get really overwhelmed. And when like what Mike has been talking about is if you don't confess those things, your mind will drift into the worst possible scenarios, and that creates nightmares for you. So something I've been focusing on a lot lately is just focusing on what I'm doing right now, what I'm doing today, because I can't do anything about what I'm going to do tomorrow. I can't do anything about where I'm going to be in a year. So do what you can today. The other thing that I do is if I catch myself being afraid of that thing, of whatever it is, play it out. Write that story in your head. But tie grace into that story, not just your fear and the law and your performance. God's with you all the time, and God will always win. There's never anything. God will never lose, and God is in you. So, in my mind, that tells me that I will never lose, even if I'm failing. So play it out and tie grace into that story, and you will come out on the other end a better person.
That's awesome. Yeah. Anybody else up here have some answers? Here we go.
Okay, so like I said, I am a double major in music and education, and it's a little rough. And what works for me personally, being very musical, is meditating over music. And so, quite a few times at school, I'll be at the Fine Arts Building at some ungodly hour in the morning, and I don't want to be there, but the project needs to get done. So I'll go into one of the practice rooms and just shut myself off, and then sit at the piano and just play something. And the song that I usually end up playing is Lauren Daigle's "Trust in You." I know Emily likes that song, but and the words just really speak to me because it's so powerful yet so simple, and it can be applied to so much. The chorus is, "When you don't move the mountains, I'm needing you to move. When you don't part the waters, I wish I could walk through. When you don't give the answers, as I cry out to you, I will trust, I will trust, I will trust in you." And so that song has gotten me through so many nights in the Fine Arts Building. So, yeah.
Thank you, Becky. One more answer on that one if we've got one.
I would say I know a lot of you are in college right now, and I'll tell you, I know what it's like to be that kid in college who has no idea what they're going to do with their life. I went to 3 different schools, 4 years, and I went through those times of just like, I was just so fearful that I would not do what God wanted me to do. Like, I was just terrified of that. And even coming out of school, I was torn between maybe trying to do ministry full time or trying to go into my career in business. And one thing that really helped me is I actually had a mentor at work sit me down and just say, listen, like, you are where you are today for a reason. And this builds on some of the things that we've heard already, but I think that's just something to hold on to. Like, when you're in a place, like some of you who are maybe on pastor track or teacher track and you're not so sure right now, just remember that you are where you are today for a reason, and God's using you in that place today. Holding on to that alone, I think, is going to help you through and help you to understand that this is part of the bigger picture that God has for your life.
Very nice. So some big things I heard from that one were, don't be afraid to rewrite your story with grace in it. Play that fear out, see where it's going to go, and then add that grace in. Don't forget that component. Using music, powerful artistic displays of God's grace and His love and His mercy, and really just sitting and being with that content and that message. And then not be afraid to be where you are and see the purpose in that. So some good stuff. My question just blacked out. Okay, here we go. Let's talk about faith. So I want to hear about a moment, an experience, a relationship, a brain explosion or brain fart that really helped you own your faith. What does it mean to own your faith, and how did you get there?
On May 27th, 2015, I was 2 inches away from either being fatally injured or I wouldn't be here today. I was involved in a car accident. It was my own fault. I collided with a semi-truck. But by the grace of God, He protected me, and I was able to walk away with only scratches around my body. Also, another act of God was right behind me was an ambulance. They were right there. Yeah, and here's the funny thing. I just thought, if an accident happens around me, I will see them in action. I jinxed myself. Anyway, on that day, when I was being transported to the hospital, I was looking up, just thanking God for protecting my life. And he told me, John, I am not done with you yet. And he is not done with you either. So no matter what you go through in your life, God is right there, and you may feel, God, I'm not worth it right now at this point. Look, you have many years of your life. You will get to that point. So
Wow.
keep trusting in him, and even if your life is like colliding with a semi-truck, you'll get through anything.
So I'm a product of the Lutheran school system. I went to a Christian grade school, Christian high school. You know, I thought I had all the answers. I graduated. I was like, I can recite the whole catechism. I know all my memory passages. I knew the gift. I was not owning the gift of faith at that time. You know, it wasn't personal for me. I had all the answers. You know, I was like, God loves me. I'm set. And then when you get to college, Mike likes to talk about how you have an identity crisis. I had an identity crisis. You know, you lose all your friends from school. You lose your family, all the connections, your school, your posse, everything that you thought was safe. And for a lot of people, their freshman year, their first year in technical school, or they're in the workforce, and they're like, God, where is my life going? What am I doing? And I think for a lot of us, that's where you can use that identity crisis where you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. You can go back to knowing that gift of grace that you've had and then really owning that and saying, okay, here's a point in my life where I'm feeling alone. I think that's a lot of people in the 18 to 25 generation struggle with loneliness and feeling alone and feeling broken and feeling like, God, what am I doing here? Kind of that, like, I'm not worth it. And so that's where you can take that knowledge that your pastors and your teachers and your parents have been giving you and then saying, here's my struggle, but God has given me so much. And then you can really start to live that faith, and you can share that with people. So now, you have the opportunity here, today we're getting to know the gift of grace. Tomorrow, what are we going to do with that? You can own that gift and say, this is for me, and it's not just for me, it's for everyone that I know. And you can go and say, here are my struggles, and you can say to someone else, here are your struggles, but here's how God got me through my struggles, and here's how he's going to get you. So I think that's really powerful, from taking the idea of knowing the gift of grace to owning your faith and saying, I overcame this. God will help you overcome this too.
Thank you. We'll take one more on that topic if anyone's got one.
Me and my siblings are all pastors' kids. So we all grew up in the Bible, maybe not necessarily reading it, but we were exposed to it on a daily basis. And I would say over the past 2 or 3 years, I've watched my brother walk away from that. I think he got caught up in the wrong crowd, and he didn't pursue his questions about the Bible. He didn't talk to anybody about it, and so that left him wide open for other people to fill his head with lies. And I remember one conversation with him that I had, and he basically flat out said, I don't. This doesn't make sense to me. I don't believe it. And I was driving home that day, and I told myself, my brother might be going to hell someday. And I want a lot of things in life, but when that hit me, it's like, that's the only thing that I want right now, is to see my brother in heaven. So I just told myself, I gotta dig into this. I gotta ask these questions, and I gotta find people who know more than I do, and at least give my brother the opportunity and the knowledge and the stability to have a chance to come back.
Nice. So it doesn't always feel like an immediate success story. Sometimes you wait on God's timing, and you just keep praying and trusting that God's got this. Thanks for sharing, you guys. I'm going to ask one more question, and then we're going to open it up to you guys. So start thinking of some questions you might have for the panel. We'll take about 2 of those, depending on time, and then we'll wrap this up. So the last question I have for the panel is, let's talk about witnessing to people. Do you have experience with witnessing to people, real, live, messy experiences? Like I'm talking either, man, that you left that feeling really good, or it was a crash and burn, but I did it, and it happened, and here's what I learned. It's hard. And what does it really look like?
I'd say a rather recent example. It's already been a few years, but I'm from college of witnessing is my roommate from junior year at Lakeland, and we actually weren't supposed to be roommates, so we ended up being roommates because a building burned on campus in the summer, and they had to kind of consolidate and put people together who were supposed to have their own rooms. We ended up in the same room, and we were about 2 most different people. He grew up down in Milwaukee, not a good situation, didn't have either of his parents in his life. His grandma pretty much raised him and got him through, and I grew up in, I'd say, the same side of Nita, just kind of that, I grew up in a Christian school, went to Christian high school, all those kind of things. And I feel like in today's world, you can't a lot of times really have good conversations with people about your faith with conflicting beliefs. Like, because I think if you look around our world, it's very polarizing. You either have to believe this, you're on this side or this side, and we don't have very good conversations anymore. One experience that I had was being able to witness to my roommate and to have a good constructive conversation about what we believe. And while my witnessing didn't immediately change him in any way, it's not how God decided to take it, he walked away from that year and he said, I have a lot of respect for what you believe, where he didn't really have that respect before. So I would say just letting your light shine, and also letting people tell you what they believe, because I know sometimes maybe we don't want to hear it, because we know what we believe. But if you listen to them, they're going to listen to you. And if they listen to you, that might be life-changing for them. I definitely saw changes in my roommate from day one to our last day together, and we still talk to this day. So definitely keep those things in mind with your opportunities to witness.
Awesome. I like the order you placed on that, where if you listen to them, they'll listen to you. That's so powerful.
I've had a bunch of experiences with witnessing to other people, and I think there's 2 things that stick out to me every time, is that you have to be excited about, enthusiastic about what you're trying to share with them. I work in the healthcare field, and I work in surgery, and I work in a kind of a cruddy environment. A lot of my coworkers are very negative, and I guess I didn't realize the impact of my own attitude. Like, I'm a very bubbly person, I'm very happy. I got a lot to live for. It's just work. So I had a coworker actually come up to me like recently and just be like, "Wow, like your attitude does not go unnoticed." And I'm very upfront about my faith. I was on the new employee wall, and it's like, okay, I'm involved with campus ministry, and church is my favorite thing on the weekend. Type of thing. So I think that is a huge part about it. If you're excited about what you're going to share with someone else, they're going to get excited too. Like, I remember one of my coworkers, they're like, "Oh, what are you doing this weekend?" I was like, "There is chili at church on Saturday." Like, come on. And then just inviting them, like if you're excited about it, they'll get excited about it, and then invite them to that, like that's super powerful. Another thing that I think is really important is coming from your own sin. I was the most sinful person, like I will tell you that, like hypocritical Christian, all of that, but I find it a lot easier to talk to people now, especially, the people that I can resonate with, like, that they're going through. When you break down your barriers, they do too, and they're open to hearing what you are trying to say. So be enthusiastic and be real with them, and I think and then just show God's love. It's a huge part of witnessing to others.
You're awesome. Time for one more, if anyone has, all right.
So, witnessing can come across in a lot of ways, and something that I've learned through my years, I'm also a product, I don't like the word, but product of the Wells grades, of the Wells school system. I literally went from Wisconsin Lutheran High School to Wisconsin Lutheran College, so yeah. And when I was in, of all things, the Lutheran Vanguard of Wisconsin, our motto that we always tried to pull across was letting your light shine. And I found that after, you know, getting out of Vanguard and going to college and then working, I worked as a waitress at Applebee's of all places. And that was an experience. But I found out that just the little things of just coming in with a smile and just having that light in your heart people will notice. You kind of touched on that. But it doesn't witnessing doesn't always have to be a, hey, have you heard about Jesus? Hello. But now I know the musical fans in here. But it can just be little things, just asking your coworkers how they're doing that day. Because if that's all they get the entire day and no one else cares about them, they will remember that you asked them and you care enough. So, and that can open all these sorts of doors to witnessing and all that jazz. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. When I was in high school, late high school, I went on a retreat at Wheaton College. It was called SEMP, Students Equipped to Minister to Peers. And one of the things we had to do was go out on the streets of Chicago and witness to people. We went out in pairs, and my dad was along too because he was one of the leaders. And he was with a group of 2 teenage girls and then himself, and they bumped into 2 other teenage girls on the street. And these girls right away brought up the hot topic of, if God really loves us, why does this happen? Why does this happen? Bad stuff. Why does this happen? And so my dad's trying to explain this whole thing to them. And while he's explaining, a bird flew overhead and pooped on his head. And that ended the conversation. So my encouragement to all of you is, don't be afraid to let God be in charge of the moment. At the very least, it's going to be memorable. So we're going to open it to you guys now. Any questions for the panel? Anything that you wrestle with? Do they wrestle with it too? Anything you want to hear tips on? Anything you want to hear about? What's your experience been with this? We got one hand on the back right side.
Yeah, no, I'm waiting for the generation to be willing to ask a question.
Ah.
Come on, what do you guys, what questions do you have? All right.
Can I talk? Okay. So you guys, like a bunch of you said, and I think most of you are, like said, you're like a product of like the Wells like school system. Do you ever find that it's like harder to witness to people who've like been Wells their whole life, or do you find it like harder to witness to people who like maybe like don't know anything about Jesus at all?
Sometimes because I know some people that just have a negative view on what we all believe in, and I just think that that I don't think, well, no matter how hard I'll try to talk about Jesus, it probably won't make an impact on them, and I might just give up. But the only thing I do is just pray for those people and just hope for another opportunity to come. I just hope that another opportunity comes by.
Hmm.
From what I've seen, it's kind of frustrating to witness, I guess, to like people who used to be Christians, because most of the time they already know what it's like to be a Christian, and for whatever reason, they decided that the grass is greener on the other side. So they are more than likely have made up their minds about it. But like what Alicia was saying, people that don't know who Jesus is, they notice that stuff. They notice her bubbliness and like your genuine care and your honest work. All of that stuff is noticed I can't honestly tell you that many people have come up to me and gone, "Wow, you're so different." But I mean, we have no idea the ripple effect that what we do will do. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Coming from a non-WELS background, I can tell you that people who are a product of WELS, or per se, I don't know. Okay, people who grow up in the WELS church, I don't think you guys understand how blessed you are to have grown up with that, to have really supportive parents, to have that Christian education. Like I'm sure all of you guys could spin the loser's catechism around me and all these things. But I think it's truly a blessing, and I think what is it, 1 Peter 3:15 or something, always have give a reason for the hope that you have. You guys have hope. If you can just articulate that in some simple, couple phrases, show it in your life. I think you guys are much better equipped than you think to do those things. You just have to have the courage to step out in faith and do that.
Another question?
I have the power now. Oh. So now that you guys are all out of high school and out essentially into the real world, is there any form of culture shock that you guys have felt, regardless of whether you're sure, Sam, regardless of whether you're a what word are we using now instead of product? Whatever, outcome. Yeah. Regardless of whether or not, is there any sort of culture shock that you guys have felt being Christians out into the real world as young adults?
Kind of a really quick thing, I think, for me is the shock of, I actually go to a Lutheran college, and there's a lot of Christians, people who are Christian, who say they're Christian, who go to church, a couple times a year, who grew up, they went to, a Lutheran or a Catholic high school, and they get to college and they say, I'm done, I quit, I'm not living my faith, like, this is not for me. And so that was kind of a culture shock for me, was getting to a Christian Lutheran college and having so many people turn their backs on God, or it can get really down. For me, my freshman year, that was a downer. But you can't let that happen too, because God's gonna, work in their lives. God's using you to bring those people back. God's using, campus ministry in our churches and our pastors and teachers to bring those people back. But that can definitely be a shock, I think, coming from a Lutheran high school, going to Lutheran college, and it's kind of not what you expect.
The answer, yes, to your question. So, yeah, I went all the way through high school and then going to a public university starting out. I mean, it was just mic drop. And it's just, it's true, you grew up one way and then you get exposed to 1,000 different takes on life. It just completely opens your eyes. And I mean, coming from that, one thing I've learned, because my family's been a product of this for generations, so it's deep in the blood, and I've just learned, I think for my family going forward, getting that exposure outside of the bubble is really important. And I'm not down in Christian education. I think it's a beautiful thing and I encourage it, but we need to find a way to teach our children in the way of the Great Commission to go out and make disciples of all nations, not go to school, go to church, go to basketball practice, go home, and never see anyone outside of your circle. So I think that's where the WELS bubble pops hard for a lot of people, is you were never really encouraged to leave. And I think that's something just for the future, to encourage our young ones to go out, to let your light shine in the world around you.
Thank you.
So a little bit of background for me. I went to college for a year, and I just didn't agree with me. I left for personal reasons, and I just never went back because I never really found a degree that was like screaming my name. So I kind of toyed around in the workforce for a while, and I think one of the biggest things that I noticed is at the end of the day, not everybody, the worldview says at the end of the day, it's all about you. As long as you get what you want, as long as you're happy, who cares about anyone else? If you're making money, if you have really big TV, if you're living the American dream, who cares what other people are doing? It really drained me emotionally. And I felt really like sucked dry after a while. So I sought out Mike one day and I was like, dude, like I feel dry. Like all of my friends are far away. I was like, I need to talk to people. I need some Jesus time. And he said, go to Point of Grace. And so I did, and it was probably the best thing that happened to me in that time frame. So thank you guys. All of them at the Point of Grace have been extremely encouraging in big ways and small ways. I couldn't tell you one person that went there that didn't encourage me or inspire me in one way or another. And it just grew from there. My thirst got thirstier, and I started going into Bible studies and all this crazy stuff, and it's great. So it isn't. I will say that it is important to go out, but I would encourage you guys to come back, get re-energized, go to church, go to Bible studies. Have some super deep one-on-ones at 2 a.m. or whatever you got to do, because you go out and you don't come back, they'll suck you dry, for sure.
Awesome. So we are going to wrap up with one last thing? No?
I'm gonna pose a question to you that I think that it's important for us as older adults and parents to hear too. You'll see it maybe, God willing, one day. You desire to keep your children safe. There's prayers for safety, and yet the Christian faith is not a safe faith. What I'd like you to do is to talk maybe just a little bit, and this will be our last. So if you guys got more questions for the panels, these guys will be around. You'll have them in community groups and stuff. So I apologize. I'm going to suck this one up because I think it's important. Speak to the blessing and the curse of this desire for safety.
I can actually speak to having a lot of exposure to this in our world today. In my publishing ministry and writing devotionals, I have a lot of parents come up to me at a book signing and will say, like, I am scared of losing them. They're falling away. I want to give this to them. And, like, there's a lot of force the parents put behind keeping their kids safe. And that's normal. That's natural to do. And one thing I try to encourage parents in, that's not how faith works. Faith is a relationship between your child and God. And it's not something you can do for them at 18 years old, at 21 years old. It's something they have to embrace. And you definitely pray for them. That's something I'd always encourage parents to do. But also encourage it in a way that says, this is who I am. Show your kids how awesome it is by how it impacts your life. The coolest success stories I've heard with my books, and I've heard it a couple of times from different parents, is they take one of my books home, they lay it on the kitchen table, and table in the living room, and they just leave it sit there. And the coolest story I heard is parent's child came home from college for a break, and that child left for school, and they noticed the book was gone. And they took it with them. That's something they took. They were struggling. They acknowledged it. They saw parents of faith. They saw how amazing that was. They saw an opportunity to grow, and they took it. That's how I would encourage parents to keep their kids safe. You can't do it for them, but you can definitely be the light that leads them to where Jesus is.
yeah, this world's not safe. And in America especially, I think we try to run from pain. We get really expensive beds and pillows and really big houses and a lot of stuff to try to make us happy. That stuff doesn't last. There's always something else, and that's just you can't run from it. God's got His own plan, and sometimes that involves a lot of pain. I had a couple of years where there's just pain, like mind-numbing pain. Looking back on it now, I wouldn't change a second of it. I wouldn't be sitting here if it weren't for that. But yeah, sometimes you really got to trust God. I don't know if anyone was in Pastor Nate's thing, but his video of the trust fall. One, they fell into Jesus' arms, and then the other one, after they did that trust fall, and they were like, "Oh, great, this is awesome," and then he's like, "Okay, face me and then fall backwards." That's gonna hurt, but if that's what God needs for you, that's what He's gonna do. It's not hard to. I mean, it's hard to grasp that, but that's a faith thing.
Something that I really admire, so my mom, she's awesome. I'm definitely someone who, I needed to get out of the hometown feel, left kind of like a risk taker-ish, but I'm very strong-willed, and the best thing that my mom has ever done for me is let me go. And I think I'm really proud of her for that, because I know, I'm her oldest. I know she would have loved me to stay at home, go to college close to home, all these things. But she realized that I needed to leave. So I moved to Milwaukee. I backpacked Europe this past summer, and the most irritating comment in the world is why would your mother let you go to Europe all by yourself for a couple months? What? Is she crazy? But that was the best thing that she could have ever done for me. I think it's really important. I definitely agree with Brandon. You have to get outside of your comfort zone. You got to get outside the bubble. Your parents can't protect you forever. You have to take ownership of your own faith, your own decisions, and go into those fearful situations. Life is really scary, but you come out so much better because of it, and you learn along the way. You have to stumble and fall a few times. Your mom's not going to be there to pick you up. So once you get outside and have some of those experiences, it makes life so much so much more enjoyable, knowing, okay, I've been here, I've done this, I've fallen down a million times. God's helping me pick myself back up. It's not your parents. I think parents really need to realize that. My mom could have kept me at home. She could have tried to convince me to go to Marian University in Fond du Lac, but she was like, "Oh yeah, Alicia, if you want to move to Milwaukee, you're crazy, but go for it. I'll support you." So I think parents, just to you guys, support your kids in everything that they need, and sometimes you need to push them a little bit. And even you guys, if you have friends that need a little bit of a push, I know my best friend, she's living a very comfortable life right now. You kind of got to push your friends too. Get outside of your comfort zone. That's where life happens. So.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Big round of applause for our panel. Oh, we have 5 minutes. Whoa, I got a raise. Okay, so I wanted to wrap up with one last thing. Now I have the time to do it. I want everybody to get a chance, so we can start wherever or bounce the mic around like we've been doing. But I want everyone to give their final just aha thought about being in this 18 to 25 window. What's something that you could say in about the size of a tweet that this, I know. I'm cool. I said tweet, right? So, thanks. So something about that size, but if you need to explain a little bit, don't be afraid. We got 5 minutes. And just something about what it's like to be in this time of your life. What's different about this time than any other time that really rocked your faith, really solidified your faith, that really challenged your faith. What was it? What is it about this time in your life that's like nothing else?
I would say just the opportunities that we have. We're young, and we're flexible, and our minds are like so open, and we there's like too many opportunities. So I'm not very good at this, but one thing I continue to work on is God tells Joshua, "Do not be afraid." And yeah, it's comforting, but it's a command. God tells Joshua, "Don't be afraid. Go out there and do stuff." But we can do that with with God's insurance. We can fall back if we fail. We have God as our insurance, so we'll get right back up and fail again, and learn from it, and just go for it. Hard and scary, but I've done it a couple times, and it's been super awesome every time. So
Thanks, Sammy.
So, as I've mentioned before, I've been very comfortably in the Wells bubble for a long time. And even though I haven't had a lot of experiences like going out yet and into the real world and not in the Wells bubble, as I said, I have had a lot of friends that I've gotten to talk to. I love talking to people, if you don't know yet. And so I've had a lot of friends that have gone to different colleges, have just started in the workforce, and seeing their experiences. And a lot of what I talk about with them, and something that I've grown to appreciate so much over these years, is Christian community. And I mean, it's the reason that I've been doing Awaken Alives for 5-6 years now at this point. I'm always refreshed after an Awaken Alive weekend because of the community that we have, this 18 to 25 generation, and then all of the volunteers. So even if you don't get this throughout the rest of your year, I pray to see you guys 6 months from now to come over and be refreshed in this generation again. So thank you.
I guess my biggest thing for our generation is that nothing is set in stone. For me, it's like just let go, let God type of thing. I remember, I'm not an anxious person. I remember being in the Netherlands, and I'm on this beach, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to go home in a week. I don't have a house to live in. I don't have a job. I don't know what I want to do with my life. Help. And I just really remember just being like, okay, God, whatever you want me to do when I go back, your will be done. I think that's super important. I am a nurse. I thought that was, what I wanted to be the rest of my life. Sure, maybe, but now I'm really wrestling with, okay, I have a degree. What am I going to do with it? So God's always going to be using you to keep going, and I just really encourage you to pray. Just pray for Him to use you in the way that He wants to, because, yeah, I'm a nurse now, but God uses me a lot more coaching basketball. So He'll use you the way that you want to, and you have so much time to grow and learn. And I really encourage traveling and encourage Christian community. It makes a world of difference. Just praying for one another, and just stepping outside of your comfort zone and getting into the world.
I guess coming to Awake Alive a lot, I've been able to relate to a lot of you, especially if you're just starting college or in the middle of your college years, that I can help grow your faith in any difficulty, because I've also been there. As I come to Awake Alive, I also learned that we are not alone we are not alone, because we all go through some of the same things, and we know that God's with us no matter what. We are always forgiven.
Mm-hmm.
would say two key points. One is keep doing things like this. Keep coming back here, keep getting refreshed. We've been hearing that several times today, but I don't think it can be said enough. This is so important. Just get that fuel for your faith. And then, secondly, understand that you have the opportunity of a lifetime right now. Our generation is largely lost. If you look around this world, there's a lot of darkness out there, a lot of unknown about life. And you have an opportunity to go out in this world and just by having a positive take on life, have people asking questions. To be a light where they're just like, what is that about? I want to know something about that. I'd embrace the opportunity. It's incredible, and I hope you guys come here, get recharged, and go out and take advantage of it.
I know a lot of us, like we said, a lot of us feel afraid a lot of times. A lot of us feel alone, or you have friends that feel afraid or alone. Or maybe later in life, maybe you'll be 7 years old and sit in your house by yourself and you say, I feel really alone and afraid. Just remember, I think of the VeggieTales, the God is bigger than the boogeyman. So that's what I think a lot of times, like in any situation, you're like, I am so alone. Like, I just feel like this vast amount of problems. Look at all my student debt. Look at all the friends I don't have. Look at all these problems that I have. And then you can say, less of me, more of God. Less of my problems, less of my worries, less of all the plans that I'm trying to make to take control of my life that I cannot control. Just say, less of me, more of God.
Woo. Very nice. All right. One big round of applause for everybody up here. Very nice.